Water, and we're excited about that. I'm excited that uh, we are in the almost at the end of the election season, and I just wanted to say good afternoon, everyone. This is Education the Best Medicine, George Pearson. Um, I'm a physician's assistant. I've been practicing about 35 years in Bay Area, doing very primary care, internal medicine, and family practice work. Uh, Want to give a shout out to my niece who just newly minted nurse practitioner and working, I think, out in Sacramento, nephrology practice. So excited about that. Uh, Want to give her the best, the mostest, and enjoy her career. Um, well, good afternoon again. And I just wanted to say thank you for checking in with us and with the whole Conscious Voices, Education is the Best Medicine, Believe Radio, 24-hour inspirational gospel music. I want to thank Curtis for being online to help me get started in the show. Again, just a mammoth person in terms of how this show works for me, and I really appreciate him. And the owner, Analogy, you know, keep it moving. And kind of want just to talk about, have some discussions about, what kind of America do we want to live in? And that's what's on the ballot. If you haven't voted, please. One of the reasons I kind of got started late today is that I wouldn't vote it. And so I always like to, not just talk the talk, but walk the walk. And I hope everyone votes and let their voices be heard, because there's a really interesting discussion that I'm going to have about voting as we progress through the show. This is kind of like a show that had to be created because things changed. And and there's been a lot of conversations about making America great. And I want to ensure that we don't get lost in the sauce about these kinds of things and where they come from and what the real background issue from. Seeing a lot of stuff going on, MAGA hats and the whole verbosity of a group of people that I think, if you are really honest about, are lying. And it's kind of sad because they shouldn't. They should just be kind of who they are, and then we can accept that or reject it. And there's been a lot of things going on about that. I work with a community non uh, uh, housing resident housing board. I want to give a real shout out to the Byron Ruffin Housing Board. I think they're the primary model for what's going to happen in terms of housing in a public-private partnership, in which you have low-income and middle-income folks either renting or in a communal setting. And I think that it just can't be managing from the top up. It has to be a discussion around what's going top down. I think my goal I'm the president of the board, but the goal in constructing the board was to, one, have community input. And what I've always said, and some famous people, I think, like Mr. Robinson, who kind of shepherded me into this piece. Sometimes you don't know how people lead you. You don't know what they're leading. You don't know what you're going to have to do. But I think that one of the things we have to kind of understand is sometimes you just have to go with that best issue and have an ethical base and a moral base, and it's doing something good, not just about yourself. And I think that that's really, really important. One of the things I think in the society right now, we really are about self. We're not as empathetic. We're not as listening. We're not as understanding as I think we should be, in order to have everyone's divergent and important point of view. No matter what you think, you can't cancel people out. You can't cancel human beings out. You can't take away women's rights and then say we are a just and free society. It just doesn't work like that. And so I was, I guess, around some of the concerns that I had. Please get your flu shot. Please get your COVID vaccination. I don't care what you think. The reason why we are not experiencing more deaths in COVID is that people got vaccinated. A large percentage did not. I think that's kind of the canary in the coal mine. We'll see how that turns out this winter. But the World Health Organization did declare, well, the CDC declared it, that the pandemic was, stable. And so I think that, again, back to some good prevention methods, and we're going to talk about voting too, but, I just want to get people we're moving into the winter now. It's more preventive issues going on. We're advocating for a number of folks. In fact, my electronic medical record targets, preventive care guidelines, vaccines. They call care gaps and care guidelines, in which one of the issues is looking at the social determinants of individuals to see it's just not about what kind of care we're giving. It's if the environment that care, food, clothing, shelter, smoking, work, domestic violence, all these things are not a drag on a person's health. But back to some of the basics. The best way to prevent COVID or flu is vaccination. Stay up to date on your COVID vaccine. It's the most effective way to prevent a serious illness and hospitalizations. And regardless what you think about vaccines, we grew up, I am 69, I grew up in an era of vaccines. In fact, I remember polio, cubes of the polio vaccine put in a sugar cube so we could eat. We could take it. I guess they figured that if they gave us a sugar cube with the medicine on, we happily take it, but it didn't even make a difference to me. Good hygiene, regular hand washing with soap and water for at least 20 seconds, using hand sanitizer when soap is not available, and avoiding touching your face, or wearing a mask. And this is preparing for winter and the holidays, and all things are going to happen if you might be medically have medical risk, diabetes, hypertension, elderly, babies, protect the babies. So you're not just wearing the mask because you're going to protect yourself. I tell people when I'm in clinical setting, I'm wearing the mask so I can protect you because I come in contact with a lot more of quote unquote toxic people than they might. So physical distancing. Maintain a safe distance from others, particularly in crowded or poorly ventilated areas. I say this because it's the holiday time. A lot of people are going to be going to a lot of concerts, and good ones out there too, I tell you. And I want to give a shout out to one of the best hostess at the Paramount, Miss Deborah Smith. She's been doing it for a few years, and tall, long-legged, light-skinned African American woman. Hey, I tell you, she's the right one to be hostessing. So anyway, but again, in those areas, you want to be careful. Ventilation, ensuring good airflow in indoor spaces by opening windows or using air filtration systems if you can afford them. Again, this is one of the issues in schools now. This is why there's I voted for it, a bill to, and it said in particular what got me was public schools. I grew up in a public school. The buildings at these schools are too old. They're my age. I'm 69. Those buildings have been built at least 50 years. They should have been torn down and redone because of all the environmental pollutants and all the things that go on in a building over time that can't be washed out, can't be bleached out. It's just a matter of, it needs to be a different structure for if you're going to educate kids with proper ventilation, proper air conditioning, so they can be in a comfortable environment. You ever been trying to study in a cold room? You don't try to do anything in a cold room. It's hard to do that, So we understand food, clothing, and shelter, proper nutrition, are important, quintessential to children learning, and quintessential to adults learning. So I would ask that we kind of look at that. I want to thank my Facebook family, all the folks that watch the page. I appreciate y'all. Interesting stuff going on. Some interesting dialogues. Facebook around relationships and how we navigate this brave new world. And is it just as simple as we'd like it to be? Because it isn't, and I'm saying that from a standpoint of that, relationships are just aren't man and women. It's the kaleidoscope. It's LBGT. It's culture. It's all those kinds of things that interact to have people interact. And how would they? What would be the acceptance? We just asked the question, what is black? And why would that be a discussion now if we're a non-race-based society? It's because we are a race-based society, and that hasn't changed. A lot of the dialogues that we're hearing now are dogma around and the dog whistles toward race and culture and minimization of an affected group: African Americans, immigrants, people of color, women, elderly, children, young men. Who would have thought that young men would be a risk? They are. They're a risk of being lost at least a decade, because it takes that long to get caught up, if you've checked out of society. And that's a real concern. Testing and isolation, regular testing, especially if you have symptoms or you've been exposed. Don't go to work sick, right? Don't go to work sick. Why would you do that? I used to send people to work sick. And now the organization is saying that if you're sick, stay home, because you're making everybody else sick, including your clients. So the current COVID-19 situation in the U.S. The United States is currently dealing with the spread of a XC virus. Says the World Health Organization declared an end to COVID-19 as a public health emergency of an international concern in May of 2023. I missed that memo. So anyway, now we know that. However, this does not mean that this is a GPT chat. I ask questions all the time. I love it. Why not have access to the world's information? However, this does not mean that COVID has been eradicated. The virus is still present and new variants continue to emerge. The United States is currently dealing with the spread of an XEC variant. XEC, right, is a recombinant of the acromion lineages. So this is the endpoints to COVID's lineage, but variation. That's how viruses survive. They mutate to survive. The Centers of Disease and Control is monitoring the variant closely. And now, in Project 2025, the CDC would not exist. It would be destroyed. It would be lended back to the states. So instead of an organized voice to want an alert to a health epidemic publicly, you have to have different states making different alerts, because it's not a unified discussion. Project 2025, if this is the playbook for the Republican Party, it is terrible. It's to our detriment, to a lot of people's detriment. Social Security, Medicare, whatever they can, anyway. So, and there was an announcement about this drug, Ozempic, semaglutide. It's a medicine for type 2 diabetes, and they belong in the class of drugs called glucagon-like peptide, or GLP-1. You see them when they're doing these injections. It's a weight loss drug. But again, the primary use of these drugs is diabetes. Why am I saying this? Because when you give a healthy person a drug for a diabetic, what's going to be the outcome? Well, we don't know, because the studies are still fresh in our minds. We won't know for 5 or 10 years what that effect is going to be. But if anyone gets, it caught my eyes, the current information on Ozempic and Alzheimer's prevention, Alzheimer's, right? Dementia, either from a vascular source or from any kind of source. But usually it's vascular. Usually blood pressure, diabetes causes dementia. So we're really concerned, because we're running out of providers. We're running out of healthcare system, and the population, 69, is aging. So That is why we're concerned about this. We want people to be as highly functional as they can, as independent as they can. Alzheimer takes that and puts the whole medical system into service, including family care providers, because folks with Alzheimer tend to live a bit longer and need total care. This is not conversations sort of had to deal with and see and help and counsel and talk with families about, including my own. Ozempic, again, helps control blood sugar levels by stimulating insulin secretion, reducing glucagon secretion, and slowing gastric emptying. 2. Potential role in Alzheimer's prevention. Again, this is from GBT chat. Asked the question, what is the news information on Ozempic and Alzheimer's? Because I've just been hearing about it. Says recent studies suggest that some semaglutide or Ozempic, the active ingredient in Ozempic, may reduce the risk of Alzheimer's disease. Recent research indicates that semaglutide is associated with significantly lower risk of developing Alzheimer's compared to other diabetic medications. The exact mechanism is not fully understood, but it is believed that semaglutide's neuroprotective and anti-inflammatory properties play a role in reducing the risk of Alzheimer's. Newsflash, how about intaking a diet that's anti-inflammatory all through your life? So if you get to this point and you have to take this drug, it will work better in your overall health. So some of the systemic issues of elevated blood pressure, elevated blood sugar, elevated fat lipids is now the dynamic of what I believe discussion of inflammation. And that's what it is. It inflames the vasculature through the combination of these products being metabolized throughout the body. And the residuals get deposited in the brain, right? Because blood simply has 2 functions. It takes oxygenated blood to tissues and takes waste products away for disposal. So that's a real common thing. I think what it says as an issue, how early are elevated blood sugars happening in the body to cause mental cognitive changes? And at that point that it's causing that, if you use a drug like Ozempic, semaglutide, early in the issue, then what does that mean? That means you lower the blood sugar level and normalize it, and thereby reduce the inflammatory condition that creates the neurodegenerative effects on the brain. Sounds good, but we'll see. And again, they don't know the exact mechanism. They just know that it works. So mechanism of action, of course, diabetes management stimulates insulin secretion, which means it makes the pancreas create more insulin. Semaglutide binds the GLP receptors, stimulating insulin release from the pancreas in response to meals. And that's why this discussion around pancreatic disease is so important. The inflammation of the pancreas by food or alcohol or tobacco or all 3 puts more work on the pancreas. Why do I bring it up? Because it's an easy fix. Don't do it. Our pancreases that secrete insulin weren't made to work 24 hours a day. They do fine metabolic manipulation, but it was never conceived that from a genetic standpoint that we would have to use our pancreas 24 hours. And in fact, we'll get easy examples: late night eating. At one point in time, 6 million years ago, if you were foraging in the African diaspora and it got late, then that was your episode of eating ended, one, because of safety, and secondly, there was nothing else to forage until the next morning that you could see. Right? So, reduces glucagon secretion. Okay, it lowers glucagon levels, which helps reduce glucose production by the liver. So just lowering sugar. Again, again, I want people to see that the beginning point of that is why you consume food in the first place. If you minimize the food and you minimize the types of food, particularly with a high glycemic index, you reduce your risk of the body having to work so hard. Because my estimation is that the foods that we're eating now, the body is still 6 million years back. It doesn't even recognize this. It's like putting this processed high level glucose in your system, your body, you're running your body on premium, and it really requires regular that can be broken down and utilized throughout the system. Anyway, my thoughts. Slows gastric emptying by delaying gastric emptying, and it helps prevent rapid spikes in blood sugar levels after, and that's what I think is really an issue. Late night spikes of blood sugar and the issue people going to sleep on how they eat. That's the first thing that will happen, sleep and eat, right? But that isn't the way, from an environmental and anthropological sense, we function as early human beings. For Alzheimer's prevention, this drug semaglutide seems to have a neuroprotective effect, may protect neurons from damage and reduce neural inflammation, which are key factors in the development of Alzheimer's. Anti-inflammatory property helps mitigate inflammation in the brain with Alzheimer's. These findings are promising, but again, more study needs to be made. And again, the discussions now that we're hearing about inflammation and its effect on us. I want to give a real shout out to Ms. Howard and Gigi Crowder as they're doing an event. Again, the mental health piece is really, really strong, and we're just blessed that they're able to function in this arena. Black folks didn't have mental health challenges. We were just, trying to get out of work or lazy, slave-like, right? But in reality, the traumas and internal traumas of living in an America takes its toll on human beings. So, and I also, again, because I pay for this program, Pamela Price should be not recalled, because I don't understand why they would recall her. What is she? She's only done her job. She's only doing her job. She's not flamboyant. There's not a whole bunch of scandal going through her office. Things happen, but not a whole bunch of scandal. She functions at a high level. She's available. She's dealt with the issues as best she could. She's doing what she was elected to do, change things. So I would ask that you vote no on her recall, because I don't think it's right. And we'll talk about that, because women in power, a woman running for the president is always biased, right? It's always biases around women in power, women, can they do the job, that kind of thing. It's really unfair. Men are required. Again, just get out there and vote. I got Miss Ishu in the Berkeley mayor's race. I think she is a breath of fresh air. And I'd like to give a shout out to the Day of the Dead. And it's and I wanted to draw some distinctions between the Day of the Dead that's celebrated as honoring of those passed in the Hispanic community, as opposed to Halloween. And I just said, what's the difference, right? So the Day of the Dead, De los Muertos, and Halloween are two distinct celebrations with different origins, meanings, and traditions although they both can occur around the same time of the year. The Day of the Dead, los Muertos, is a Mexican holiday where families welcome back the souls of their deceased relatives for a brief reunion, which includes food and celebration. A blend of a Mesoamerican, that's a group of Hispanics that speak the Meso language. It's the original Hispanic language. The only reason I know, because I took care of a group of patients, and they didn't have a translator for it, so the family had to translate Mizo, which is one of the most It's one of the first languages in Mexico. It's being lost because those that speak Mizo are passing. It's interesting. A blend of Mesoamerican ritual, European religion, and Spanish culture. The holiday is celebrated each year from October 31st to November the 2nd. So ends today. While October 31st is Halloween, November 1st to 2nd is All Souls Day or the Day of the Dead. According to tradition, the gates of heaven are open at midnight on October 31st, and the spirits of the children can rejoin their families for 24 hours. The spirits of the dust can do the same on November the 2nd. I think that's correct. The roots of the Day of the Dead celebrate is contemporary Mexico amongst those Mexican heritage in the United States and around the world. It goes back almost 3,000 years. 3,000 years, right? Yeah. So how far does Halloween go back? We'll talk about that. 3,000 years, and the rituals honoring the dead pre-Columbian Mesoamerican. I've got about another. Let's look at the time here. Yeah, the show goes off at 3:30, so I got that start around 2:30. Goes off at 3:30. So I want to thank you guys for hanging in and being patient. I'll be on next week and the week after that. So starting at 2 o'clock, hopefully. Technicals always get you. It says that to the rituals honoring the dead in pre-Columbian Mesoamerica, the Aztecs and the Nuha people living in what is central Mexico held a cyclical view of the universe and saw death as an integral and ever-present part of life. Isn't that true? Well, that's the difference between Halloween. Halloween is Halloween, but this is a discussion about the spiritual connection between the living and the dead that they honor as a circle of life. Okay. Upon dying, a person was believed to travel to Chinmoscalata, the land of the dead, only after getting through 9 challenging levels, a journey of several years, could the person's soul finally reach Mictecla, their final resting place. In the Naha rituals honoring the dead traditionally held in August. Interesting. Family members provide food, water, and tools to aid the deceased in their difficult journey. This inspired the contemporary Day of the Dead practice in which people leave food or other offerings on their loved one's grave or set them out on a makeshift altars called the ofrendas in their homes. So always ritual involved, always, understanding the past, present, and future, that's the issue. So the Day of the Dead, dos los Mostreros, originally rooted in ancient indigenous tradition of Mexico, partly Aztec, Mayan, and pre-Columbian cultures, later blended into Catholicism. That's why they're Catholic. I didn't know that. Purpose is a celebration to honor and remember deceased loved ones, believing their spirits return to visiting the living. They celebrate November 1st, All Saints' Day, and believe to guide spirits back to the back. Sugar skulls, decorative skulls made of sugar or chocolate, often personalized with names. Pada, parades and festivals. Communities often come together for parades, music, dancing, and other festivities. Grave visits. Families visit cemeteries to to clean and decorate graves, often spending the night there. Oh, okay. Halloween. Halloween originated in an ancient Celtic festival of Samhain, which marked the end of the harvest season and the beginning of the winter. It was later influenced by Christian traditions. I didn't know that. Purpose. Now, I guess that's why people that are Christian don't like Halloween, I guess. I like Halloween because my dad would get off of work, and this was in the North Oakland neighborhood, and it's totally different now. We live on 7th Street. And he had gotten off work, so now I understand my father did not drive, so he had to walk everywhere he went. And I was always upset because he got there late, and then I realized he was walking everywhere when he never drove. But it was late in the evening, and I would have my brown bag and my little whatever I was wearing, and the neighborhood was rich, and they always had candy. And I said, when I got to be that person in that house that I would give out candy because someone understood that my father had to work, and they didn't want me not to get the treat or treats. So that's why I do it. That's why I honor it, because it reminds me of my dad and all that neighborhood that was all black that took care of the kids. Yeah, that's why. And celebrate really involving the world of ghosts and spirits now, more focused on fun and spooky activities. Celebrate the night of October 31st. Trick or treating, children dress up in costumes and go door to door asking for candy. Costume people of all ages dress up. In the ages, they asked this question about when do you stop trick or treating? They said high school. I don't know about that, but there were some. When I called them, I called the lady. I said, "How your mom? How you mom? So how you do?" She said, "I ain't no mom. I'm an auntie." I said, "Okay, I got that." Jack o' lanterns, carving pumpkins into the lanterns with scary faces. Uh, Haunted houses. Interesting about pumpkins is that they're really a water-based, I guess, plant. And when you cut them open, it drains the water off. That's why they go bad fast, because it's water. You have to cut them and they break down in a couple of days. Haunted houses, visiting and creating haunted attractions for entertainment, party and decorations, hosting theme parties and decorating homes with spooky decor. While both celebrations involve things of death and supernatural, the Day of Dead is deeply spiritual and familial, honoring ancestors, whereas Halloween is more about fun, costumes, and spooky entertainment. That's the difference. Uh, and and it got me into thinking. I said about voting, and I asked GBG. I said the importance of voting as an institution and meaning those who are descendants of 1619. Remember, you always have to have the conversation. We had this conversation before. I have it briefly. Black is a diaspora. When you talk about Black, you're talking about the African diaspora, Jamaican, Senegalese, name it. But when you're talking about African American, you're talking about those descendants who were brought here in 1619. Totally different group. Voting is the cornerstone, and this is what it said about it. Voting is the cornerstone of democracy, serving as a vital mechanism for citizens to influence government decisions and to hold elected officials accountable. Voting is the cornerstone of democracy, serving as a vital mechanism for citizens to influence government decisions and to hold elected officials accountable. That is our voice. Why would you want to take away our voice? Why would you want to limit the people's voice? Why would you want to prevent people from getting to the polls' voice? That's what this discussion is about. American democracy is on the ballot because they want to run the election through the courts now, of which 3/4 are Republican-based judges brought on by, guess who? The ex-president. We need only look at the decisions by the Supreme Court to understand this is a court that has, one, been bought, and secondly, been bullied by an ex-president. So voting is the cornerstone of democracy and serving as a vital mechanism for citizens to influence government decisions and hold elected officials accountable. I don't want to read that 3 times because that's what we need to understand. For the descendants of 1619 who are African Americans whose ancestors were brought to America as slaves, and for immigrants, voting carries profound significance. Importance of voting as an institution, representation. Voting ensures the government reflects the will of the people. It allows citizens to choose leaders who represent their interests and their values. But what if that goes awry? What if the values are joined to one particular group and their belief that they are the reason America exists? that September the 6th, maybe even the Civil War, nothing to think about, nothing to see here, not the why, just nothing to see. Accountability. Officials are accountable to the voters. If they fail to meet the expectations of their constituents, they can be voted out of office. Isn't it interesting? You would think that if a individual talked about if an individual talked about taking over the system, killing his or her political people that believe in politically, caused a riot at the capital of the African Americans bill, then you would say they aren't American. Well, depends on how they look and who they are and who they support. Because you can color anything, any shade that you want to, if it fits your interest. That's called cognitive dissonance. Civic duty. Voting is a fundamental civic duty that empowers citizens to participate in the democratic process and shape the future of their communities and country. Policy influence. Through voting, citizens can influence policies on critical issues such as healthcare, education, and civil rights. That's why I went and voted today before I even did this program. I wasn't supposed to do the show today, but blessings happen. Because I want to make sure that people understand the assignment. You young African American and young Hispanic and young Asian men, you understand the assignment. And it shouldn't be the control of women's bodies. That's not the assignment. Equality, justice, being heard. That's why it's so important for me to be on this nonprofit board for Byron Rufford and to have a resident run the board. Miss Ash, Cheryl, those folks. William, all the members of the board that speak in unison about conditions, about what needs to be changed, about budget, about clarity, about honesty. That's what you do. That's what's going on. And again, I know my political views, but I want everybody to vote regardless. Because that's your right. That's the American way. Not to prevent people from voting, not to block people from voting, not to strip them of their ability to vote. That's not American. That's not American. 60 cases were put forth looking for graft and corruption in this last election. Nothing passed the smell test. And here we are talking about it again because grievance is a part of the platform now. White grievance is a part of the platform right now. And that's really, really sad because he who has everything wants more. Anyway. The meaning of the sentence in terms of voting in 1619, historical struggle. African Americans have faced significant barriers to voting from slavery to Jim Crow laws. Right to vote is a hard-won victory that honors the struggles and sacrifices of past generations. So this is where other cultures need to understand on whose shoulders you ride. Because if our shoulders aren't bent to demand voting, there would not be any for affected groups. Ride the wave. Honor. Be honest. Be clear. You cast that vote because some African American got slave whipped, got raped, got traumatized, got murdered, got lynched. That's why. you're able to vote. There's no other culture, there's no other race, but descendants of 1619 are 3/5 of a human being. That's who that meant. It didn't mean people of color. It didn't mean Asian. It didn't mean Hispanic. It didn't mean Africans from Africa. The mean for immigrants, integration. Voting is a way for immigrants to integrate into the American society. Ask the Latino culture about integration. And what's your thought? It's beautiful to be able to live in America and then go to Mexico, which is Spain, and speak Spanish. It's beautiful. And the discussion is, why anti-immigration now? That's the question that should be asked. And who's more involved in that anti? Be clear about that. Whatever you want to be, that's fine. But understand, it's all of us or none of us. Voice in government. Immigrants can influence policies that affect their communities, such as immigration reform, education, and health care. Who's leading that fight against immigration? Who's leading that fight against those that want to come and engage in the American dream? Who is having that conversation? And both groups, voting is just not a right, but a powerful tool to change the means to ensure that their voices are heard in a democratic process. That's why the prevention, that's why the blocking, that's why challenging the rules. All this is about your ability to exercise your right in this country to have a voice. You take away my vote, you take away my voice. You don't think I deserve the right to vote? That's not what it says. It says born in the U.S., naturalized citizen. And then it got me, I said, oh, gee, let's get to the voting piece. I had to ask, I asked GPT, I says, what are some of the major reasons that a woman has not been elected president of the United States? I'll pose the question again. Understand these chat GPT minds all have their own inherent biases because humans are inherently biased. So you have to take the information and analyze it for yourself. There are several factors that contribute to the United States not yet electing a woman president. First one is quite simply gender bias. You think that women just weren't qualified, they didn't have the political will or the chops to do it. Hillary Clinton definitely did. But what happened to her is what this discussion is about. I say when a candidate can beat up on some other candidate, but when he meets his match, he doesn't want to have another conversation. That tells you what kind of leadership skills he has. He doesn't like being embarrassed by a woman. But wake up, hey, leadership, mid-level management in medicine, it's all mostly women. They're the docs that's running it. And it said that because from the data that female physicians are more humane, are understood more, blah, 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 blah. Something I think male counterparts need to understand now, particularly with this change in gender presence with the LBGT community seeking healthcare. We have to change. We have to understand that we're not all the same. And our differences make us unique. It should be okay. But it's not. Gender bias. Despite progress, gender bias remains a significant barrier. Many voters hold stereotypes about women's leadership abilities, which can influence their voting decisions. Boy, how could you have that and have a mom? Whenever I'm watching the football players, I'll say, well, thank you, mom. So how could she be a leader and getting you to that football game, that football practice, trucking all over the state to watch you play, and then you hit the big time. All of a sudden, she don't know what she's doing. Okay. Electability concerns. Some voters may believe that a woman's candidate is less likely to win a general election, leading them to choose male candidates they perceive to be more electable. All this is male patriarchal trauma, male patriarchal dominance, minimization, cognitive bias, media coverage. Women candidates often face biased media. You watched it just recently in the election. What she had to do was Vice President Harris. She's not doing enough interviews with general public. She's done now you can't get her, you can't not see her. So what's the issue now? Oh, what's she not giving? Oh, come on, you guys. Just say you don't want her to do it. Let's say you know what? We haven't heard anything more about because the men don't want to do it now. We haven't heard anything more about another debate. Would be great. But if you are a loser, you don't want to do a debate with a woman that you don't respect. Disrespectful, that's what it is. And that flips me back to my board. People present, the hires do this, and when you have got done your homework, present, the valid issues about costs and about saving money, can't handle that. It's supposed to be like, we're supposed to be fighting, drama. I'm supposed to take off my shirt, want to call you all the bad names. No. We're just the facts, man, as you would say. Higher standards. Women candidates are often held on higher standards and must prove their competence and qualification more than their male counterparts. Historical precedent. The lack of historical precedent for women president can create a psychological barrier, making it harder for voters to envision women in the highest office. Isn't that a trip? You can envision an insane white male who tried to overthrow the Capitol, likes to hang out with Putin and all these dictators, and is the lapdog for the rich. But you can't imagine a woman of color that's honest that went up through the trenches to get where she had in an all male environment as per. Something's wrong with that. Something's wrong with that whole mindset, that whole psychology. As a male with 4 granddaughters, lost one, love her a lot. Can't do it. Can't do that anymore. It's not fair. It's not honest. It's not real. It's disrespectful. Political pipeline. Fewer women hold high-ranking political positions, which limits the pool of experienced female candidates for presidency. These factors, among others, contribute to challenges for women facing achieving the presidency in the United States. However, the increasing number of women in positive leadership roles is a positive sign for progress. Okay. Well, I think that's kind of like all good. We got about 15 minutes, and I want to thank everyone for showing up. I get to the polls, get your ballot in. Don't wait till the last minute. We don't have that kind of time. Make time. Take time to make time. Be real. Quit playing. Let's human up. I want to again thank everyone for being who they are, and again, as I'm subbing for Miss Howard, I just want to note, she's well deserved for getting the peer counseling piece done. She's certified now, and again, it's a it's a piece where you see the intersection of mental health and mental coming in together, and that person in the middle helping that person navigate through that. In healthcare in California, there's no. It's moving to a no closed door. In other words, if you have a medical problem, doors open. If you have a mental health challenge, doors open. If you have a social determinant problem, doors open. That's going to be the new look of medicine. A lot more case management, a lot more helping people manage the day-to-days, because if they don't manage the day-to-days, the big picture becomes the big picture. And again, peer counseling, share experience, using their own lived experiences to connect with and support others. Train. They're not professional therapists, but they receive training for active listening, providing emotional support, and offering practical advice. The training helps them to be effective and assist others in navigating through major difficulties. Non-judgmental support, we all need that, right? The peer provides safe, confidential, and non-judgmental space for individuals to share their concerns. And I think that's kind of important, because too often you hear people say, well, if they just did this, if they just did that. OG Mandingo, he's a white professional speaker, great, brilliant man. He did this thing called the God Memorandum. If you get a chance, you should look at it and listen to it. It's just very humbling. Talks about uh, self, and he used the analogy. He says, if you think your life is bad, in our case, in his case, it was a newspaper. In our case, you would go to the obituary page and see all the people that would love to trade your experience for another day, another chance. So, recovery and empowerment. The goal of peer counseling is to foster hope, support recovery, and empower individuals to take care of their lives. Peer counselors often work in various settings, including schools, community centers, healthcare facilities. Certification. And I want to again thank my Facebook family for checking out, and all the folks that are watching. Drop a line through Education is the Best Medicine on my page. It's under George Pearson. Hey, no problem. Love it. Always learning something. Always trying to provide different kinds of experiences. And I appreciate those that interact. Some of the discussions are really interesting. I'm glad they're making them. And again, definition of black, right? Black is defined as a color that results from the absence or complete absorption of visible light. It is considered a achromatic color, meaning it lacks hue similar to white and gray. In physics, black is perceived when no light reaches the eye or when all wavelengths of light are absorbed. Symbolically, black often represents darkness, elegance, or authority. Maybe that's why they're scared of the president, Kamala Harris. President? How's she gonna be president? I cannot not see it. You have to see these things. I can believe that she is in the right place, right time for a whole bunch of young women of color, particularly African American black women, to see her in her, like we saw ourselves in Obama. That's what's at stake here. That's what's at stake here. The legitimacy of black females as power sources. She can be your mother, she can be your husband, she can be your lover, she can be your aunt, but she can't lead you. She can't be the president. That's kind of interesting. What about all the other roles that women, particularly women of color, particularly black women, have had to play? This strong black woman. When we talked about the strong black woman, it's a myth. It's a myth. It's been a myth. We have to stop dealing in myths. We have to stop being insecure. The women on the board of Byron Ruffin are leading the board because that's the way it's supposed to be. They're the front line. They know what's going on in the facility. I'm just the president. but they live it and breathe it. Amazing what you can do and what you can see when people see you ahead. I want to thank Patrice, manager at Byron Rumford. She's talking about retiring. I want to give her flowers now. Super. My good friend Willie Phillips, who helped me through this whole process. I'm very hard to get along with. So I get it. Um, well, as I said before, and I'll say it again, I want to thank folks for tuning in. Will we be back here at the same bat time, same bat channel? And by that time, they'll be going through the ballots, and we'll find out that Kamala Harris is the president of the United States, and we're going to be very happy about that. She's going to have a black job now, real black job. Yeah. And oh man, I'm excited about her. You know, we got to turn the page on this madness because it's just been, phew, we back in 1619. First 10 presidents. First 10 presidents were slave owners. They were great men probably, but they were slave owners. And they created a whole patchwork of mixed children because they were sleeping with these women. Washington never had any children by his wife. But there's a whole bunch of black Washingtons. Interesting, huh? Now, black typically refers to individuals who identify as a part of the African American community. This group primarily consists of descendants of enslaved Africans brought to the United States, but it also includes immigrants from Africa, the Caribbean, and other regions. But primarily consists of descendants of enslaved Africans brought to the United States. Let that sink in for a little while. Because that's what we're talking about. That's why you don't want to talk about history. That's why people are woke. Because woke says that, gee, a group of people got brought here X amount of number of years ago, and you enslaved them, and you made money off them, and you raped them, and you disturbed them, and you did everything you could to them. And the white female played a major role. So nobody's hands are clean. Everybody got a little dirty. There was no South slavery. It was American slavery. The South and the North benefited, and when the North realized where they want the country to go could not be under the guise of slavery, that's when it all broke out because you were taking away money. You were taking food out of the plantation's mouth. And all the relationships they had developed that were free, now they have to pay for. Anyway. Well, we've got about 6 more minutes. And understand the black population of U.S. is diverse and has grown significantly over the years. As of 2022, there were approximately 47.9 million people in the U.S. who identify as black, making them about 14.4% of the country's population. The group includes those who identify as black alone or in combination with other racial backgrounds, as well as black Hispanics. Okay. But when you get to that African American 1619 ex-slave, nobody wants to identify them because they were slaves. Okay. The foundations for all the things that are happening for people of color, dark, function on the effect of 1690 and the effect of slavery on African Americans that translated itself to the immigrated population. Whatever benefit, good or bad. Again, being portrayed as lazy, non-working. No, what you have to say is that in places like Santa Clara and the Bay Area, we were redlined. There were covenants so that we, as African Americans, could not buy property in that area, let alone live there. Let alone live there. And Black Americans have historically faced significant challenges, including systemic racism, discrimination, and economic inequality. These obstacles, the community has made substantial. Despite these obstacles, the community has made substantial contributions to the American culture, politics, and society. However, many Black Americans continue to advocate for systemic changes to address the ongoing issues of racial inequality and injustice. That's why Rodney King, George Floyd are so significant, and the number of Black women that have been murdered, defenseless, sitting at their homes with their man, watching TV because Black lives really don't matter. That's why it's such a telling statement. Black lives matter, but they really don't. We have to turn the page on that mindset. Example, Colin Kaepernick got lambasted from taking the knee. But this San Francisco football player, Watts, wears a MAGA hat on, not an issue. No one set him down and told him he was being political or whatever. Again, different strokes, different issues. So I think that people want to jump on board when it's comfortable and there's no iron in the fire for them. But when it gets hot and there's an iron in the fire, they will revert back to, well, I'm from wherever. I wasn't originally born here. And that's kind of sad. Because that means that you don't have an understanding of history and the culturation of history and your place in that history, which is what anyone that enslaves somebody wants. They want the ignorance goes. Ignorance goes. And I guess one of the things is President Joe Biden used the word garbage in relationship to whatever. But if you have that one statement versus, man, start Trump from last year and keep him moving forward, you got, man, talk about disrespect. Too much. Just too much. So I think that, again, democracy is on the ballot, women's health and rights and ability to control their own bodies is on the ballot. It's already started because he's going to lose. And he's probably going to lose really, really widely, given what's going on. Just, people don't say what they do. They just do it. Like, it's kind of weird. Newt Gingrich was angry because someone was telling the wives of conservative Republicans to go ahead and vote because no one knew because he got upset about that. Again, control. Thanks for coming in. It's been great. Appreciate all you. We'll see you next week. And, thanks for showing up and showing out.